We all thought we knew Jean-Claude Van Damme. The muscles, the kicks, the splits between two chairs that made grown men gasp and teenagers rewind their VHS tapes in disbelief. But what if we only ever saw one side of the legend? And what if someone like Joe Rogan, finally decided to tell the rest of the story? Because in one of his most unexpected podcast moments, Rogan let slip something subtle, and it changed everything. Was it admiration or disillusionment? And more importantly, was it time? Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, because the stories behind the headlines are always deeper than they seem. And this one? It might just change how you see a legend forever. For those who grew up watching Bloodsport, Kickboxer, and Universal Soldier, Van Damme wasn't just a movie star. He was a superhero who didn't need a cape. He didn't pretend to be strong. He was strong. He could land a spinning back kick with the elegance of a dancer and the force of a heavyweight. Hollywood tried to manufacture tough guys, but Van Damme didn't need help. His presence wasn't created in a studio. It came from sweat, scars, and years of actual martial arts training. To fans, he symbolized control, power, perfection. But perfection never tells the whole story. And sometimes, the people who look the most composed on the surface are the ones hiding the most chaos. Enter Joe Rogan, UFC commentator, black belt, podcast host, and all-around authority on physical mastery. He's praised fighters, critiqued actors, exposed phonies. But with Van Damme, he held back. For years, Rogan sang his praises. He'd talk about the chair splits like they were sacred rituals. He'd marvel at Van Damme's physique like it belonged in a museum. This was Joe Rogan, a guy who openly criticizes Hollywood bravado and demands authenticity. And yet, with Van Damme, he remained curiously reverent. At least, until recently. It wasn't a viral soundbite. No dramatic headline. Just a quiet moment, almost missed, tucked inside a podcast episode. Rogan mentioned Van Damme again. The splits, the flexibility, the legacy. Then came the sentence. He's not the same guy behind the scenes. That was it. No details. No scandalous story. But for anyone paying attention, the temperature in the room dropped. Because Joe Rogan never says things like that lightly. This wasn't criticism, it was revelation. A controlled detonation of a myth. Jean-Claude Van Damme's rise to fame felt like a martial arts fairy tale. He came from Belgium with a dream and a black belt. He was broke, barely spoke English, but carried himself like destiny was already decided. And then Bloodsport. Suddenly, the world couldn't get enough of him. Studios lined up. Directors shaped entire movies around his physical abilities. But behind the scenes, the pressure was building. Because fame doesn't reward consistency, it demands escalation. You can't just be great again. You have to be greater. And Van Damme tried. More fights, more stunts, more expectations, until something inside him cracked. It started small. Whispers of outbursts on set. Rumors of excessive partying. Then came the reports. Substance abuse. Failed relationships. A string of marriages that ended almost as quickly as they began. Van Damme had 5 marriages, including 2 to the same woman. And the tabloid stories? They weren't flattering. Affairs, public arguments, unpredictable behavior. At the peak of his fame, he was also spending up to $10,000 a week on cocaine. He checked into rehab more than once. He admitted in interviews that he couldn't stop. That the fame, the pressure, the grind, it broke something inside him. The man who once symbolized control was losing his grip. One moment stands out among the many twists in Van Damme's story. In 1994, Street Fighter was filming in Thailand. Van Damme was married at the time to model Darcy Lapper, who was also pregnant. But what fans didn't know was that behind the scenes, he was having an affair with pop sensation Kylie Minogue. And the truly shocking part? He never denied it. In a 2012 interview with The Guardian, nearly 2 decades later, Van Damme casually admitted it. Yes, it happened. So what? His wife, Darcy, reportedly found out the same way the public did, through the article. No warning, no apology, Just a cold, casual admission. To fans, it was a turning point. Not just for the betrayal, but for the attitude. He didn't seem sorry. He seemed amused. And that's when many began to question. Was the man behind the legend ever really the man we thought he was? Through all of this, Joe Rogan stayed quiet. Publicly, at least. He continued to praise Van Damme's skill. He continued to highlight the moves, the discipline, the legacy. But those who listened closely could sense it. The tone was changing. Less awe, more reservation, not judgment, just distance. And that made his later comment, "He's not the same guy behind the scenes," land even harder. Rogan, who built a reputation on calling things as they are, finally broke the silence. And it wasn't explosive. It was clinical, real, human. So what do we do when our heroes turn out to be flawed? When the man we watched break bones with cinematic grace turns out to be breaking lives behind the scenes? Do we throw out the legacy? Or do we accept that greatness and chaos can live in the same body? Rogan didn't try to cancel Van Damme. He didn't mock him or call him out with rage. Instead, he offered something rare in today's media world: nuance. The truth, after all, doesn't always come as a headline. Sometimes it arrives as a single sentence. A change in tone. A subtle shift. Here's the twist most people didn't expect. Van Damme didn't run from his past. He began speaking openly about his drug use, about his bipolar disorder, about the damage he caused, not just to others, but to himself. He reconnected with his ex-wife, stayed active in his children's lives, and slowly he started to rebuild, not his image, but his authenticity. In recent years, he's starred in projects that mock his old persona. He's leaned into the myth while quietly showing us the man beneath it. And fans started to respect him again. Not because he was perfect, but because he wasn't pretending anymore. Maybe that's what Rogan understood all along. Maybe that's why he waited so long to say anything. Because real legacy isn't built in slow-motion kicks. It's built in what you do when the spotlight fades. And Van Damme, he didn't disappear. He evolved. He laughed at himself. He owned up to the darkness. And he showed us something even more powerful than a fight scene: growth. So now the question turns to you. Was Joe Rogan right to speak up? To finally reveal that the legend we admired was more complicated, maybe even more human, than we ever imagined? Or should we let our heroes stay frozen in the past, untouched by flaws, unchanged by truth? Let me know in the comments below. Hit that like button if you believe truth matters more than myth. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into the real stories behind the icons. And don't forget to hit the bell, because some of the biggest stories aren't in the spotlight. They're in the shadows. This has been the untold story of Jean-Claude Van Damme, the legend, the man, and the moment Joe Rogan finally said what many were too afraid to admit. Legends don't always live up to their image, but sometimes it's the fall that makes them real.